Hi there, welcome back to Tribuna. And so we've got a special hangout today. We've got two Arsenal fans and we do have a Spurs fan. First of all, we'll introduce the Spurs fan. Hi Josh, how are you?
Not bad stuff.
And we've got two Arsenal fans and we've got Steve, regular Steve, how are you?
How you doing? All right.
Yeah, good, thank you. And we've also got Joe. How are you doing? You right?
I'm not bad, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to the hangout and yeah, kind of looking forward to the game tomorrow, but also very nervous. But I guess you know what we're talking about. There can only be one topic, the North London derby. So, Josh, we'll start with you.
Yeah.
Now, how are you feeling going into the derby? Are you feeling good, like some Spurs fans are feeling ultra confident that you can get a result, or are you feeling that could either go either way because form goes out the window? How are you feeling going into the game? Confident?
I think I'm more confident than I have been for previous games at the Emirates, but I suppose the thing is, with our away record against top six teams and the fact that it is the derby, you never know. I mean, not having Toby Alderweireld there seems like quite a big loss, but we've played well without him. So yeah, it's one of those that you can feel confident, but you can never be confident for a game like this because it really could go either way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Steve, how about you? How are you feeling before going into the game?
Yeah, well, again, I think it's the form doesn't really come into it, doesn't it? You just think, well, on the day, if Arsenal turn up and the players perform, then we should win the game. But, Tottenham are playing really well at the moment, unfortunately. And, Harry Kane obviously missed the internationals because he was apparently injured, but apparently he's now available for the game. So, which is the same for Dele Alli. Apparently he was injured, or obviously he didn't get selected, but he's available for the game.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Obviously Lacazette will start on the bench. Probably Kolasinac will start on the bench.
Oh, I can't be having that. Can't be dealing with that. And how about you, Joe? How are you feeling going towards the game? Confident?
Slightly apprehensive, I'll be honest with you. I mean, obviously, our quality on the pitch is undeniable, but our form at the moment kind of strikes me as a bit concerning, I guess you could say. I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, you're always going to be concerned going into a derby.
Oh, of course.
Especially, Jay, we'll just come back to you. Would you class yourselves as the favourites going into this, or because usually you'll be underdog, but would you actually class yourself as favourites going into this, considering where you are in the league?
I think that in terms of the sort of terminology of saying sort of favourite, I don't really think that either team can be a favourite as such, because in a game like this, anything can happen. But obviously, our form has been better against Arsenal than your form against us has been, certainly since Pochettino came to the club. And I think
we haven't beaten you. We haven't beaten you since Pochettino arrived, apart from in the League Cup one.
Well, I just think that at the moment, I would say, apart from Lacazette and Sanchez, and maybe Kolasinac, every other Spurs player is better than their equivalent at Arsenal, I think, at the moment.
Do you agree with that, Joe?
I think on form you probably could argue this, but I think our team has the potential. I think it has it all there. It's just whether they have their head in the game as such.
Definitely, absolutely. Of course, every player needs to be on form for this. What do you make of that, Steve? Do you think that overall at the moment Tottenham have the better players, or do you still think that we have the better players to outpace Tottenham?
I think if you went 1 to 11, there'd probably be more Spurs players inside than would be Arsenal players at this particular moment. But like I always say, on our day, if they all play to their potential, we can beat anybody.
Yeah.
But it's a question of, does that team turn up? And it's the big unknown, and it all a lot depends on the tactics Wenger decides, you know, the players he plays. You know, poor Man City where he starts Lacazette on the bench, and it's just bonkers to me. Why pay, you know, £50 million for a player who doesn't play in your big games? That just doesn't make sense to me.
No.
You know, you don't buy a £50 million player who needs to work his way into the league, do you? He's ready to go. That's why you spend the money.
Definitely, and he's actually got on them. He's already scored 6 goals, so not that he's had a slow start. He's had actually a good start.
Yeah, and I bet his conversion rate on chances is very high. I mean, he doesn't get that many chances, does he? Either hits the target, goalkeeper saves it, or he scores.
Yeah. Now, another question, an annoying question I have to ask. Jay, will come to you first. Power shift. Now, everyone's going on about some sort of power shift, mainly because you finished way ahead of us last season, and you went to the Bernabeu and got a draw at Real Madrid, and you beat Real Madrid very comfortably. Now you're through. Do you now sometimes honestly think there is a bit of the power shift now between the two clubs?
I think at the moment Tottenham would appear to be a stronger team than Arsenal, and I think very few people would dispute that at the moment. But we've only finished above Arsenal once in the Premier League, and I'd like to see that a lot more consistently. But I think in terms of a power shift, I hear a lot of Arsenal fans say, well, there's no power shift unless you win a trophy. Well, yeah, I agree. I'd say, well, Spurs have done everything but win a trophy so far. The progression has been clear to see. Obviously, we've struggled this season at the start at Wembley, and I think it's a load of nonsense, the whole Wembley hoodoo thing. I think it's just a psychological problem, and I think the important question, or the important thing is whether the players in that Tottenham team believe that they are better than the Arsenal players and believe that there is a power shift. Because if they can believe that and they know that and they can perform that, then obviously it'll be clear to see for everyone. But I think I'd like to see a lot more consistency in that, and I'd like to see the sort of upward spiral continue before making a judgment. I think it's too early to tell just yet.
Definitely, and also, Jay, I just want to ask you, what is this that Pochettino's actually done to your squad? Because he's also developed really good players like Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Winks, and also Harrison from the league. So, do you think that Pochettino is actually getting the best out of the players, and Arsene Wenger actually isn't at the moment? Because Arsenal got a lot of potential in the youth.
Yeah.
That, Jay?
Well, I think we need to give obviously Pochettino a lot of credit, but credit also needs to go to all the people around him. Tottenham appear to have some very, very, very good staff in the academy. There is, in fact, I was reading that Pochettino will take players randomly from the academy and will put them in the first team training session, specifically just to give them that experience and to give them that motivation and say, look, you can be here. And that's something that I'm not sure how many managers actually will do, that completely random academy players with a bit of potential to try and push them. And I just think Pochettino is doing what more managers should be doing, which is we invest in so much, or professional clubs invest so much in their youth setups. You only have to look at a club like Manchester City. They've got a 7,000 seats stadium in their training ground just for their academy and for the women's team to play. And so much money goes into that. But sort of on the flip side of that, clubs are also spending multi-millions of pounds on players, often overseas players, whereas they've got some very, very talented players that just won't get the chance. You only have to look at England in the under-17s and the under-20s. The success there, it shows that the talent is there, and all of these players are playing in these Premier League club academies. So they have to get some experience somehow. And I just think that what Pochettino is doing is he's recognised that, and players are actually getting a chance. And I think sometimes you do need to loan them out, but once they're ready and he feels they're ready, then he will give them a chance. It was clear with Kane, it was clear with Winks. Ali was a player that was sort of well documented as being sort of a talented player. and luckily we got him under the noses of Liverpool. But I think that's the difference. I think Arsenal is reluctant to, although it appears that Wenger has sort of become more sort of open to doing that, with like Nketiah coming through, and I thought that was brilliant as well.
And Nelson and Maitland-Niles.
Yeah, and they're talented kids, but they've got to play. That's the difference, and I think Pochettino is willing to give them a chance. I mean, Harry Winks, his performance at the Bernabeu, who would have thought that a player like that was capable of producing a performance like that? Nobody probably expected that, but it just shows that's what if you give a young player who's hungry an opportunity to shine in a big game, then they're probably more than capable of doing it because they've got the talent to be there in the first place.
Yeah. Joe, we'll just come to you on that. Do you also seriously think there's a little bit of a power shift going on, or what do you think it is that Arsene Wenger's not doing that Pochettino is doing to gain the best out of it? What do you think it really is?
Look, I think obviously Arsene's had the probably quite consistent success over quite a long period of time, I think. But I think that Pochettino just brings an extra element, I reckon, that Arsene doesn't seem to be able to provide. I mean, he's been providing exactly the same thing for what, 20 years now?
Yeah.
It hasn't been successful, but Pochettino seems to have brought something into the Tottenham team that Arsene doesn't seem to be able to replicate.
It's the youth. I'd say it's probably just the youth. I think you look at Arsene Wenger, it would be very, very difficult to fault how he started his career as Arsenal manager. But it just, to me, it seems like, I'm all for consistency. I think consistency is good. But like anything, if it's the same over and over again, I would say for the last certainly last 6 or 7 years, Arsenal's won a couple of FA Cups, but if I was an Arsenal fan, I wouldn't be happy with that. Given the stadium you've got, given the sort of stature of the club and the money that is actually available to the club, and I suppose that goes to the question of the ownership in Stan Kroenke and Usmanov, whether he's going to be allowed to buy the club or not. But I just think ultimately, I would be very disappointed if I was an Arsenal fan, having seen Arsene Wenger sign a new contract, because clearly I think the difference between Pochettino and Wenger is Pochettino is younger and he's hungry and he's sort of accepts that he's still got a lot to learn as a manager, and he's got a very young squad as well. Whereas Arsenal, to the credit, there's a lot of players that have been there a fair while, players like Walcott, and you've got some good experienced players like Cech. But I just think I don't see a manager that shows any passion. You've just got a very sort of grumpy looking figure that just sits there with his arms folded every single game. And whereas Pochettino's up on it, not maybe as much as Conte does at Chelsea, but he's up on his feet and you see him shouting at his players.
Yeah, motivating the players. Yeah, motivating.
That's the thing. I think Arsene Wenger's not a motivator, or appears to be a motivator at least.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Steve? Do you think that is the difference between Poch getting the best out of the players and Wenger not? What do you make of that, Steve?
Yeah, I agree. I think Wenger was cutting edge when he came to the league, 21 years ago, and he had a lot of ideas and, with training and developing players and tactics, and he was the new light, shining light, wasn't he? But I think in the last 10 years, it's shown that he's just basically got left behind. If you look at all the new managers coming into the league now, like Pochettino, Conte, Guardiola, Klopp, they're all touchline managers, aren't they? They're all actually on the edge of the pitch. They're almost playing the game, aren't they? They're playing they're kicking every ball. They're there. They're making changes to the tactics. They're shouting at players. They're motivating players. And Wenger basically sits on the bench. He's got his tactics when he's starting the game, whatever that might be. And all he does then is moan to Steve Bold, "Oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that," and nothing changes. We've got a reputation of bringing through young players, but I think with Arsenal they seem to reach a certain point, but they don't actually progress beyond that. You look at Walcott, Chamberlain, Oxlade-Chamberlain,
Well, he's
Gibbs.
gone now, yeah. And
You
he's
know,
gone now.
well, yeah, but I mean, they all got to a point, and
Yeah, I see what you mean.
they just don't progress, don't they? And I think, you know, with the Alexis Ozil situation, he knows if they're going to stay or if they're going to go. And in my opinion, if they're going to go, get them out of the team. You know, bring Wilshere in, bring players in who want to play for the club, who want to play for the badge, and get that passion back into the side, because it's not there at the moment. He wanted to go, so let him go. You know, he's coming back, but you know, players like Holding. Let's develop Holding. Let's develop. You know, what's happened to Chambers? I know he's been injured a little bit, but players like this who want to play for the club. You know, that's what you want. Players that don't want to play for the club, get them out.
Yeah.
And that goes for Wenger as well.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely.
I would add to that, actually, that I suppose another difference is the fact that of the Spurs players that have come through, a lot of them, I know Arsenal fans like to say, oh, Harry Kane is a gooner. But
we got rid of him, so we can't keep dwelling on that.
If you listen to the press, we every single player under the sun potentially playing for Arsenal at some point, didn't we?
Yeah. But I think the key is, though, is that of the Spurs players that have come through, a lot of the academy players have grown up Spurs supporters. Harry Winks is the best example of that. And when you have players that are, for example, in Tottenham's case, Tottenham through and through, and it means something to them to wear that shirt, and they wear it with pride, then I think that there's a difference in the attitude shown. And I think with Wenger and Pochettino, the difference between Pochettino and Wenger ultimately is down to adaptability and stubbornness. And I think Arsene Wenger is probably the most stubborn manager in world football. I've never seen Arsenal lose a game and then he does his interview where he has accepted that his team was worse and that they were poor. He's always blaming the referee. He's always blaming other things, and I've never seen him say, "I got it wrong" as a manager. And I've never. And he changed the system. I suppose the positive, one of the few times that I've seen in recent years Arsene Wenger be adaptable was when he changed to a back three for the FA Cup final.
But he came too late, didn't he?
It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
But it did come very, very late, and it cost us top four, because I was saying to him change it earlier. Well, it did come very late.
Pochettino, for example, will play a back four, then we'll play a back three, and we'll play a variety of different systems and formations. And luckily, we've built a squad where, with the fact that we've got probably in both full-back positions, we've got two very good options on either side, where so we can play them as wingers or fullbacks, and there's a lot of things we can do, whereas Arsenal seems to have plan A and plan A.
Yeah, we do tend to have one plan and just stick to it all the time. Joe, what do you think? Do you think another reason why Arsenal haven't got the best of records against the big teams is because we don't change our system? What do you make of that? Why do you think that's down to?
I mean, I think that our adaptability obviously is probably not that good, as has been said already, but also our attitude seems to have problems against the big teams. And I'm not sure if that's problems in the dressing room or anything else, but for some reason, the players don't seem to have their head in the right place in the big games. And I'm not sure if that's potentially down to the captaincy or the dressing room, as I said, but it just doesn't really seem to be there.
No, it just doesn't. Okay, right, let's go into team selection. Steve, we'll start with you. How would you set up your Arsenal team? How would you set up going into this?
How I would set it up, or how Wenger would set it up?
How you would do it. Just how you would do it. I think we all know.
Yeah, I think the back three is going to be probably Monreal, Mertesacker, and Koscielny with Gladnack. And
do you think Mustafi won't pull through?
I don't think he'll be ready. And then Bellerin on the right, obviously checking goal. And then midfield will probably be. He'll probably go Xhaka and Ramsey. And then he'll have Ozil and Iwobi, and
Really?
yeah, I don't know, possibly, and then Sanchez and Lacazette up front. I think that's how it'll go. Can't see anybody else break. I can't see him starting Wilshere instead of Ozil. Like to see that, but I don't think he'll do that.
Yeah. How about you, Joe? What would you have? Would you go with that same team, or would you change? How would you?
I probably agree with Steve on quite a lot of it. I think that the defence is potentially exactly how it would pan out. I'd like to see Mustafi in there, but again, there seems to be quite a lot of uncertainty around that. And as you said, Steve, I'd like to see Jack Wilshere in the team because he brings a bit extra. He brings a bit of the passion.
He hates Tottenham.
Exactly, and I think
Tottenham.
Yeah, but he understands what it means, so that's a good thing. But
exactly, I think that's quite important in a game like this because he can potentially bring that strength into the team that could potentially push us over the edge, I think you could say. But I think Steve is right. I think Alexander Lacazette has to play up front. And as you said, he's been quite effective. And he's been out on the pitch. But yeah, I think that's what I would say on that matter.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Jay? How would you, with the Spurs team, how do you think Pochettino is going to set up? How do you think he's going to set up?
You know what? I would struggle to say how Pochettino would set it up because he's actually changed it quite a lot this season, and it depends. But I think that I would expect to see back three with wing backs, and I would go Lloris, and then I would play Vertonghen, Dyer, Sanchez, and I think Sanchez has been a brilliant addition.
Sanchez, yeah.
I would play Danny Rose and Kieran Trippier. I know it was tough actually, Ben Davies and Danny Rose, because I think Ben Davies has been really good in Danny Rose's absence. But I think Danny Rose is one of those really, really fiery players that loves a derby. I think the key is going to be the midfield, and I think this is Arsenal's probably. I think the sort of central midfield is actually Arsenal's most vulnerable part of the team. I would say it's even more vulnerable than the defence, because I mean if Coquelin ends up playing, I think that's you can give the you can say already you don't even need to watch the game. Spurs will win.
Really? Do you really?
I think
say that?
Coquelin. No, I think Coquelin has been incredibly poor, especially in big games. You only have to look at the last time when he played in that draw and he got himself sent off. Granit Xhaka is a good player. Aaron Ramsey, I would play probably alongside him, or Jack Wilshere.
Definitely.
And I think Coquelin is, and I'm not trying to say, and I think Arsenal do have a very good midfield, but I think sometimes Arsene Wenger's got the wrong combination of players in there, and I think Coquelin is an obvious weak link.
Yeah, and I also think Onene is a weak link because I'm not his biggest fan.
Yeah, I don't think he's a bad player, but defensively, yeah. I think the thing is, I think Arsenal do have a few hotheads in midfield, and I would say that Wilshere has the potential to get sent off.
So just Granit
Xhaka has the potential to get sent off. Coquelin has the potential to get sent off. As in, those three would stand out as players that I would think, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be like a bit cautious about. But I think it's very important that you have Aaron Ramsey in that midfield, because Aaron Ramsey likes a goal against Spurs. He's caused us a few problems. I'm not sure if Welbeck's fit, but if Welbeck's fit, I think Welbeck, I would probably, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd probably want to see two up front. I'd probably want to see Welbeck and Lacazette, and then maybe, or even a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3, and then you have Sanchez on the left and Welbeck on the right, because Welbeck's also caused us problems. And I think that pace in behind is something that I'm still a little bit worried about. And I think Lloris is an unbelievable goalkeeper, but Lloris sometimes does have me thinking, gee, what are you doing? Because sometimes they just charge out, and if he misses it.
I also remember in that derby a couple of seasons ago when we drew 2-2 and Lloris is on there with both those goals.
It was
that Sanchez goal at the end, I thought.
Yeah. But no, just to sort of finish up my Tottenham team, then I would go, so overall, Lloris, Sanchez, Dyer, Vertonghen, Rose, Trippier. Then I would play midfield, Harry Winks and Moussa Dembele. Then I would play Christian Eriksen, Dele Alli, Harry Kane, and then I would bring Son on in the second half, probably.
That is a dangerous attack. I must admit that.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe, we'll just come to you. So, of course, we all know Harry Kane is a major threat because every time he comes up in a derby, he always scores it. And obviously, there is Ali. Is there any other players in that Spurs team that worry you?
I think the one that pops out for me is probably Christian Eriksen. I mean, he's scored a hat-trick in his...
Oh, yeah. He'll be fighting with confidence because of that.
Of course, and all the goals were absolutely incredible goals, as you can see. So Christian Eriksen obviously pops out. Moussa Dembele as well is an incredibly consistent player, I would say, for midfield. He seems to be able to hold off the ball off almost everyone, I'd say. So for me, those are probably the two players that could tip the balance.
And also, because Alderweireld isn't there, do you think it has made their defence a little weaker? Or because I personally don't think it really makes a that much of a difference. Because the thing with Spurs, I really hate to say, that they work together as a team, no matter they don't rely on individuals. So obviously Sanchez has come in and done well. Vertonghen's obviously a good defender, and Dyer can do well at the back. Do you reckon now that defence is a bit weaker, or do you think it's still just as strong? And what do you actually think we need to do to actually get it? Do you think we need to go in with pace? Do you think we need to go in just as strong, just take our chances? What do you think we need to do to get it?
I'd say obviously the chemistry between Vertonghen and Alderweireld is incredible. But as you say, I think their strength at the back is undeniable. I'd say, as Josh said, the pulls in behind is still a concern, as they are for
when we play a high line,
of course. And I think that our speed in behind can cause problems for practically anyone if it's played in the right areas of the pitch. So I think that's what I would be telling all the players, was to get him behind as much as they can.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you there. Jay, we'll just come back to you before we get back to Steve on this bit now. You've mentioned all of our attackers about Sanchez, Lacazette and Welbeck, but one player you haven't mentioned is Mesut Ozil. Now, do you actually see him being a major threat in that game? Because, of course, I'm one of his biggest fans, but I will admit these are the type of games where we do need him to step up, and he doesn't generally tend to step up in big games. So do you think there's much of a threat there? Of course,
I'd say Mesut Ozil turns up in big games, but only when he's wearing the white Germany shirt. That's when he turns up. He doesn't turn up in that Arsenal team in big games. I think he is a very talented player, but he's going to have to work really hard against a Tottenham team who probably they'll be up there in the top 2, top 3 teams for most sort of yards run in the game. He's going to have his work cut out. I think he's obviously dangerous, but I don't see him as... I think if someone like Harry Winks gets physical with him, I don't think he's going to enjoy it. Obviously he is a threat, and I think if you do put a few passes together, and I think on your day, I would say Arsenal's probably the best team in the league passing the ball wise. Maybe Manchester City this season have been probably up there, but Arsenal consistently pass the ball around brilliantly. But I think he will be only dangerous if the supply comes to him. And I think that's where the midfield battle is going to be key, because if players like Dembele, Ali and Eriksen can press the outlets to stop Ozil getting the ball, then he'll be largely ineffective, I'd say.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Steve, what do you think about that? How do you think we have what we need to do to actually attack at Tottenham and actually beat them and close them down? What do you actually think we need to do, Steve?
Said that, haven't they? Really, it's you know, as I said before, if all our players play to their potential, then we can give Tottenham a good game, and there's no reason why we can't beat them. But Ozil has, you know, Ozil disappears in big games, and he doesn't have the same effect. Although he's, you know, and it's a mindset, isn't it? You know, now we're talking about mindset. You know, January's 5 weeks away, transfer window. You know, if his mind is not in staying at the club, then I don't know. I'd rather have Wilshere in there. I know he's not going to go to Wilshere, but I think Wilshere would have a much bigger effect on the game than Ozil will. He's a local lad, isn't he? He plays for the badge, so I think he would be a much better player in that position, sitting just in front of, you know, Ramsey and Xhaka. You know, Sanchez does what Sanchez does. He you know, he gets the ball. He does a lot with it, and you know, and yeah, I think it would be nice to make Tottenham worry about us a bit more than we're worrying about them. But you know, it's how far we've fallen, isn't it? Where you know, we used to be teams worried about us coming out to play, passing off the pitch and creating chances and scoring goals. But now we're worried about what they're going to do against us, and we're at home.
Yeah. Do you actually think that home advantage, because obviously Spurs have only won once ever at the Emirates, do you actually think that home advantage is a bit of a key into this, or do you just think it just totally goes out the window?
I think, well, this season, obviously, our home form has been better than our away form. So the fact
we've won every game at home. I think we've won every game.
It's got to be, you know, in our favour. But you know, I think form goes out the window, doesn't it? North London derbies. It's not about how you played other teams up to this game. It's a one-off game, and as I say, it's if they play to their potential, they can win the game. But if Tottenham score first, we crumble. I mean, if Tottenham score first, they'll get another one quite quickly, and then that'll be the game over, won't it?
I think interestingly, when you say Tottenham score first, I think the last couple of seasons when we've ended up scoring first, and in fact, every time we've scored first in the North London derby, we've not won the game. And it was only that one time when you went 2-0 up at half time, and I remember Nasri squeezed that in from a really ridiculous angle.
Oh yeah, I remember that game.
But because I can remember being 2-0 up 2 seasons in a row, I ended up losing both games. Well, no, 2-0 up one game, I think it was. Can't remember. We lost 5-2 2 years in a row. So yeah, I'm not sure how.
I think it's a different team now, isn't it? I think it's a different set of different players.
Yeah, definitely, and also the last 3 times I believe at the Emirates has all ended 1-1, and when we go to their place, they usually turn us over. Why do you think that is? Joe, will come to you. Why do you think that is? You know, that you haven't been able to beat them lately.
I think our home advantage is not as important as it once was. I think our atmosphere around the stadium probably isn't such a healthy one at the moment, which is quite a shame, I think, because that really does impact on the players on the pitch. And I agree, I think it has been that way for a few seasons now, so that would be a reason I would say that we haven't been as successful at home as Tottenham have against us at home.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Jay? Because also, most people are saying that Spurs fans are kind of all together and all that, all behind the manager, behind the owners, and behind everything. While with Arsenal, it's very split between the fans and it's very split. I hate to see.
I suppose the difference is, I think Spurs right now are where Arsenal were before you moved to the Emirates, where everything was on the up, and then obviously you had that invincible season, and then moved to the Emirates, and it wasn't a successful first year round. But I think in terms of winning at the home games, the key, I think, was actually White Hart Lane, and I think White Hart Lane really was a big factor, because I've been to countless games where the atmosphere was electric, and if you've ever been, it was electric there, and it had an atmosphere that I think will be, or has been and will be, greatly missed in the Premier League. It's one of those really, really old school grounds where you're right on top of the pitch and you really do intimidate players. And I think it was so evident where you're standing there watching the game, and it's literally the whole thing is vibrating, and the players are clearly shook in the Arsenal team. 3 seconds, they get on the ball, Spurs fans jeering them, and then they end up losing the ball, making mistakes, Spurs fans right on their backs, and then roaring the team on. And I think it was that sort of passion in that game in over the past few years that have helped us, as well as a team that has been just very motivated and hungry. And I think it'll be interesting to see whether we have that advantage at Wembley. Probably not. Arsenal love playing at Wembley. But I think what might put us in a better advantage is the fact that playing at Wembley, we've had to play every home game almost as if or treat it as if it was an away game. And I think that then, and our away form's been fantastic, apart from Man United, which is a really poor performance, I thought. But I suppose I'd say White Hart Lane probably did have a lot, and I think nobody ever says that the Emirates is intimidating. Everyone, there's a reason why pretty much every team in the league, probably up and down the country, will sing "Is this the Emirates?" if the home team is quiet.
Or is this a Viking?
Yeah. And this season, I can't believe I was actually shocked at how many empty seats I've seen at the Emirates on televised games this season, and that probably shows the sort of discontent, and especially with how expensive Arsenal is for the supporters. And there's nothing that seems to be, obviously, if you're a club that size, you want to be winning things, and that's the difference. I think it's the togetherness comes with the fact that we've been very mediocre, and finally potential is starting to be unlocked. We've got a young team, young manager, everyone's all behind it. We've got a fantastic new stadium to look forward to. Champions League 3 times now in the last few years, which we'd never had before. So that's why I suppose the only way is up for Spurs at the moment, it appears. Whereas the only way is down or plateauing for Arsenal. So that's probably the difference.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, unfortunately. Okay, right, we'll wrap this up very, very soon. Before we wrap this up, let's have predictions from each of you. Jay, we'll start with you first. What's your score prediction?
I'm going to go 1-0 Spurs.
What about you, Joe? What do you think Spurs will be?
I'm going to go 1-1. I think that we have to put it out of the bag, but I think to ask for us to win the game might be a little too much.
Yeah. How about you, Steve? Predictions?
Well, I'll be the positive one, then I'll go with a 2-1 win to the Gunners.
Yeah, hopefully. With me, to be honest with you, even in my formal preview, you watch that, I didn't really give a score prediction. I just don't think I want to score this. I don't know. I'll stick with my guns and I'll say nothing. I'll say nothing.
That sounds like you're either quietly confident or very nervous.
I don't even want to do this. I'll stay silent. I'll just say there's absolutely nothing. Okay, right. We'll wrap the show up.
We don't have a very good record playing at Saturday morning kickoffs either, do we?
No, we don't. Okay, right. We'll wrap the show up there. Thank you ever so much, Steve, for coming on once again, and thank you very much.
No worries, mate. Anytime.
Thank you very much, Jay, and thank you very much, Joe, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.
See you later. And come on, you Reds.
Come on, you Spurs.
Nice to meet you guys.